To me, a participatory museum is a place where people are invited to make, share, and connect around the content. And the around the content part is really important. There are a lot of places in our lives where we can make things, where we can hang out with people socially, where we can connect. But what's unique about doing so in a museum context is that those conversations and those creations happen around and about the artifacts and the artwork that's on display.
The Riverside Art Make, we're hoping to investigate how creativity spills out into the community. We invite artists to imagine ways they might co-create with the community, to engage the community, to talk with the community, and to let the community inside their art process. We invite the community to expand their notion of art or suspend it if need be as we explore math, science, design, history, and all of these areas of life that we don't typically associate with art, that those are creative possibilities.
I think what's a little different in terms of what's spoken about sometimes when we talk about social practice or community engaged art is really thinking about how you can invite people who are non-professionals and non-artists to be part not just of the consumption of the work after it's done, but the production of the work in process.
Well, I used to do demonstrations, and every month I'd open my studio and every month I would demo, and people would be so intrigued, and it occurred to me people really want to try to paint, but they have no idea what to do, and they're timid or intimidated by the process. So I started to think about, well, how can you get people involved? And I would start to do things in my studio where I would let people participate. That's when it occurred to me, people just want to be able to play and paint, and so it's about getting others involved and letting them have a chance to experience some of the joy that I get from this process.
So many people think, I'm not an artist, I can't do that.
I get really paranoid about even trying to do it.
Right.
I don't know, I guess maybe I'm just not really creative, or I don't think I am.
But in fact, what we find is people are inherently artistic and they love to play and they love to explore new ideas.
How about that?
It's great fun. People enjoy the process, and I love watching people do something they didn't think they could do for the first time.
Back in 2012, a bunch of board members came together, and there was really this question of, you know, how is a museum with a long trajectory, a great history like ours, going to remain relevant in this quickly changing time? We can't ignore the fact that Instagram was like one of the fastest growing apps in the last couple of years. You know, they have an astronomical amount of photographs. So people now have the technology to edit and change photographs like they've never had before. There's a DIY movement where people are really taking ownership of you know, they want to make things, they produce their own videos, they produce their own books. They're looking for more interactive experiences. And so museums really have to embrace this DIY culture in order to be accessible and relevant in the future.
These are characters that I came up with that we're making to communicate and talk with the people of Riverside. They're going to have cell phones, and people can call these friends on the cell phones, and they can talk to them and they can listen to what they have to say.
Hi, I'm Pablo. I'm here with my friends Magdalena and Vincent, and we're here for the Riverside Art Museum's Art Make project.
The three of us hang out together pretty often.
Hey Pablo, it's Patsy.
Pablo, Hugh Ross.
This is such a great idea.
You know, we've talked about DIY culture, but also our diverse populace. You know, Riverside is one of the most diverse regions in the nation. How do we have a membership and a governance that reflects that diversity? And so the board really started to think about, well, what sort of art excites them, gets their pulses going? And so what we really sort of honed in on was interactive art installations, high quality art, but different ways of interpreting art, different ways of showing art, and the importance of working with artists in our region, and also bringing arts into the community.
Students decided that what they wanted to do was create a piece that could be interacted with the public, that a viewer could come and walk through and move through the piece. That was the most important aspect that they wanted to do. We then decided to do wind, and we wanted to work with wood, and so the idea was that this was going to be sort of this dust devil, this temporary wind moment that we're all very familiar with here in Southern California, and sort of just kind of capture it in this wood form that functions like a tunnel or throughway that a viewer could kind of walk through and experience. We built it so that there's lots of areas where wind and light can pass through, and we really wanted this to be something that light really affects the piece. And so when you're inside this turbulent thing, it's actually very quiet and almost like a very kind of mystical space.
Engaging community through art is really a joint exchange. It's a collaboration. I work with communities in a really specific way as spaces of cultural production. I feel like in the practice of everyday life, culture is constantly being created on a daily basis. It's not something that lives solely within, you know, the museum or the institution, but also is happening on a daily basis. And so communities is where I think that's really happening.
I think we see lots of examples of community engaged work happening both intentionally and unintentionally in terms of how people are invited to connect with the work. That can take lots of different forms, whether that form be something like looking at how you can invite feedback or new ideas to come into your work process, how you can invite people to actually physically help you with the process, or how your artwork can have a life that can continue to grow based on what other people do. But I think that it's really getting away from that idea that there's a one-way conversation happening between an artist and a viewer, and moving to a two-way conversation, and that viewer or that participant being engaged as a partner in co-creating what the work ultimately is.
So I think that the museum again wants to have accessible and relevant exhibitions, but as you start to build relationships, you find that it's a bit more complex. So we've been really relying on stakeholder groups. We have a new diversity task force to get feedback, to get insight, to be able to co-program together. So we make sure that it's not sort of just a top-down unilateral approach to what we think the community wants, but to really work hand in hand with the community, partner with grassroots organizations, partner with neighborhood groups to really provide them arts exhibitions that they're excited about.
Art has become an expression of who the community is, and I think the community wants to see themselves in art making and being a part of that process. Hopefully artists will find a way to explore questions, solve problems together, work together creatively, but also for artists to hear the stories of the community and how that might inform their own art making, how that might change or shape or help them visualize their own art making for the future. So creativity isn't just producing art necessarily, but creativity is about how to experience the world, how to solve problems in the world, and how to engage with one another.